All right, if you're just waking up again, it's a championship morning for the Golden State Warriors, who as a franchise won their 7th title last night. That breaks a tie with Michael Jordan's Bulls for the 3rd most in NBA history. Only the Celtics and Lakers have won more. Steve Kerr, meanwhile, in his era, has now won 4 championships in the last 8 years. The last team to win that many in a span this short were Michael Jordan's Bulls in the 90s. This is a team that went 15-50 just 2 years ago. They're the first team ever to go from worst to first in a 3-year span. And for this big three, history indeed. That's 21 wins in the NBA Finals for Steph, Clay, and Dre. That is the most by an all-NBA trio in the last 50 years, passing Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili on that all-time list. And wait, they may not be done. The Warriors have opened up as a favorite to win next year's NBA championship, according to our friends at Caesars Sportsbook, with the Brooklyn Nets and Boston right behind them. And then you see the rest of it, Milwaukee with Giannis there. Who knows what might have happened had they not had that injury to Chris Middleton. But I notice, and I turn to you here, Monica McNutt, when I said that, Warriors are the favorite for next year, I felt like I got a little bit of a skeptical expression from you. Why is that?
I won't. It's not skeptical, Greeny. It is, I will not make the same mistake again.
Which is what?
Which is counting this squad out. Listen, I think, and we have seen, the Warriors represent the gold standard in this league. Mm-hmm. There are tremendous coaches in this league that are literally game planning for Steph Curry and company. I just think, and even these guys will tell you, there is no easy path, right? Even if they are the favorite, there is no easy path in terms of everything that it's going to take. As excited as we are about their supporting cast, we got to see if those guys continue to take the next step. Jordan Poole is someone they're very excited about. Take a next step, a healthy year for Gary Payton Jr. coming off that elbow, which he said bothered him a bit through the finals. But I get those odds. I respect those odds after what we just saw.
Look, and Wendy, there are some names that also belong in this conversation, and they may not be names that even average basketball fans know, but names like Wiseman and Kuminga, get used to hearing those names. They have young players in this league who have star quality written all over them. So as Steph and Clay and Dre continue to age, they may have, in addition to Jordan Poole, who you just mentioned, and Wiggins, who is still young. The cavalry is kind of coming in Golden State. This thing may not be that close to being over, Wendy.
Yeah, so you just talked about where they compare to the Chicago Bulls. Why was the documentary called The Last Dance? It was called The Last Dance because a decision was made to break that team up because it was so expensive. Imagine if the Bulls ownership, instead of breaking up that team, decided to sell a piece of the team off, to sell off basically a wing of Chase Center to help fund that team's championship window. Would they have won 8? Would they have won 9? That's what the Warriors have done. The Warriors ownership, Joe Lacob and Peter Guber, have sold off a piece of the team and sold off a piece of the Chase Center. They did this over the last 18 months. They raised around $500 million to pay for this window that is upcoming because they believe that Steph Curry's window was long. They invested $250 million into his extension. They extended Draymond Green. They extended Klay Thompson despite his knee injury. They kept guys like Kevon Looney around, and they're sitting here going, look at the young players that they have. Look at the guys, Andrew Wiggins is eligible for an extension now. Kevon Looney's a free agent. Jordan Poole eligible for an extension. They may be able to pay for it because they took a proactive step to keep the window open. Now, none of it happens without Steph Curry. None of it happens without the coaching staff and what they did together. But they have taken steps to maximize this window that is upcoming, including these 3 lottery picks that they just came through with Wiseman, Moses Moody, and Jonathan Kuminga. Maybe all 3 of them don't pan out. Maybe only one of them becomes a bona fide star. But if that happens, they're going to have another refresh for what could be a very impressive championship window that's reopened.
You make an incredibly important point about organizational commitment. I will add to it because I was there for that Bulls dynasty, covering that team on a day-in, day-out basis. Another reason it was the last dance is that the personal relationships were frayed to the point of being impossible or close to impossible to maintain. And I think it says a great deal about the leadership of Steph Curry, and maybe to a degree Steve Kerr as well as the coach. But I think Phil Jackson, if anyone could manage relationships, he could. I think it says more about the leadership of Steph Curry Curry that this team doesn't have that. That here they are having gone through more than those Bulls teams went through when you really think about it, with all the injuries and everything else, and they are still here and they are still pulling on the rope together.
Being in person for my first finals, Greeny, was incredible, partly because of the opportunity we had to talk to coaches and players. And the way that this team talks about Steph, I might be messing up this quote, but Steve Kerr said something to the effect of him being such a giant of a man, and he has the type of...
It's part of it. Whatever you need for motivation, and when they go on to win it, guess what? You have to eat that. Yeah, I remember 100%. When we won a championship in 2008, Rasheed Wallace was like, oh, look, they're not going to win a championship. They don't have a point guard in the center. As soon as we won it, my first interview, I couldn't wait to remind Rasheed Wallace about the words he said about our team. It's part of the game. I'm just happy I'm part of the legacy.
And look, all of this obviously is at some level in good fun. But here's the point. It is instructive. I think it is fascinating to see that in this moment, look at the mountain they just climbed. Yeah. Look at the accomplishment they just gave. Steph Curry last night became one of the Mount Rushmore, I'm not going to use that term, but one of the great players.
Here we go. Here we go.
Let's not get into... He became one of the all-time great players. He became an immortal last night, no ifs, ands, or buts. But he's thinking about this, right? He's thinking about, in those moments, that's still there. It is amazing to me, and maybe this is part of what makes you guys the great athletes and the great players that you are, that this stays with you. It bothers you that deeply.
It do, Greeny, and it also shows that they're watching. Yeah. They're watching. And Steph Curry is not the one who lash out at people or lash out at media people or whatever throughout the season. He held that receipt. He used it as motivation. And we're talking about a guy that was already a top 15, top 20 greatest player to ever do it. Mm-hmm. But he held his receipts for motivation. And look, you as a former player, I sit up there and I embrace it. I saw it last night. Yeah. I saw it last night. I embraced it, but what can I say?
For the record, Big Perk, I'm not going to let you go out there like that. Greeny, I didn't see them here either. No. In fact, I didn't think they was winning the championship, but I'm on record saying that. But I think that is what makes this organization so unique, right? Because they've developed the guys around Steph. Steph has continued to work on his body. Draymond has continued to be focused. He figured it out throughout the course of this series, and I love when he said, I didn't have a concern that I would not be able to. I knew what I bring to this table. It's just kudos to the entire organization.
Look, I'll admit it, too. On the very first NBA countdown we did together, Stephen A. Smith predicted the Warriors would win the championship. And my thought inside was, well, he's really as crazy as everyone says he is. I didn't see it coming at all. Wendy, how about it? A little bit of pettiness sometimes goes a long way.
Yeah, they have the opportunity to do it now. And, I think 3 years ago, I did a story about Steph's all-time ranking, and I remember talking to Steve Nash about it. And Nash said, I got news for the whole world. He's already an all-time great. And I never forgot that. And I kind of agreed with them. But I got to be honest with you, as I've talked about it over the last 3 years, I've had difficulty defending the position of saying he's top 10, top 12, because people would come after you because of the finals record. And I actually kind of backed off saying top 10 because I didn't, even though I felt that way, I didn't have the ammo to make his case for him. And I think that reality nagged at him because he believed it. He believed he was one of the greatest of all time. And people who he respected, like Steve Nash, like Steve Kerr, they believed it too and told it to him too. And yet he had to listen to that he wasn't. And it was somewhat of a fair criticism because the bar, when you talk about that, is so incredibly high. So for him to clear that bar and to clear that bar in this kind of situation, because I know they were the favorites in the bookmakers, but a lot of people thought them as an underdog in this series. For him to do that, it just is such a freeing moment and really is kind of a discussion ender.